For 5 long years, the skies between India and China have been silent. No direct flights. No Delhi to Beijing. No Mumbai to Shanghai. For 5 years, what should have been one of the busiest air corridors in Asia was cut off. It's frozen by mistrust, border clashes, and a geopolitical standoff that left both nations staring at each other across the Himalayas. But now, suddenly, as we approach late October, a shift is in the air. India and China have announced that they will resume direct flights, reviving links that were severed since 2020. At first glance, it might look like a technical detail, a bureaucratic aviation update. But in reality, this is far bigger than just planes taking off. It's about geopolitics, strategy, trust, and the signaling between two of the most powerful nations in the world. This is about whether New Delhi and Beijing are quietly testing a thaw. Whether Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping are recalibrating their relationship at a time when global politics is shifting dramatically. So the big question tonight is simple. Is this the beginning of a new phase in India-China ties, or just a tactical move with limited real impact? Let's first rewind. In 2020, after the Galawan Valley clashes that left soldiers dead on both sides, relations between India and China fell to their lowest point in decades. Borders hardened, trade was scrutinized, apps were banned, military deployments increased. And in the skies, the most visible symbol of normal direct flights was put on ice. For years, business people, students, tourists, and diplomats had to rely on indirect routes through Singapore, Dubai, or Hong Kong. Air links were severed not by accident but by choice. It was meant to send a message. Relations were frozen. For both publics, the silence in the skies became a metaphor for the silence in dialogue. So when, after 5 years, both governments announce that flights are back, it immediately sparks questions. Why now? What changed? Who benefits? Is this an olive branch from Beijing? Or a sign that New Delhi is willing to compartmentalize disputes? The answer is multi-layered. On one level, the resumption of flights is practical. Businesses have been clamoring for easier travel. Students stranded for years want to go back. Families are split across borders. There's pent-up demand, and restoring flights addresses that pressure. But on another level, it is deeply political. You don't restore direct flights without a conscious calculation about signaling. India is saying to China, we are open to limited normalization. China is saying to India, let's not let border disputes block everything. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Direct flights aren't just about convenience. They are arteries of trust. They allow easier people-to-people exchange, more frequent business travel, more cultural contact. Every seat on a plane between Delhi and Beijing is a tiny bridge. And when those seats are filled again, it means something larger is moving. Remember, air corridors are often the last to be cut in a conflict and among the first to be restored in peace. In 1962, after the Indo-China War, air links collapsed. It took decades before full normalization returned. In 2020, when they were frozen again, many wondered if we were entering another decades-long freeze. The fact that they are back after just 5 years signals that neither side wants a long-term Cold War. Both are testing the waters of engagement. But let's not get too optimistic. This move doesn't erase the deep distrust that remains. The line of actual control is still tense, with thousands of troops deployed on both sides. Patrols clash. Roads are being built, airstrips extended. Militarily, nothing has changed. Economically, both countries still impose barriers and restrictions. Politically, both leaders still view each other with suspicion. So why resume flights now? The answer lies in timing. For China, the economy is slowing, trade with the West is under pressure, and restoring ties with India is a way to show flexibility. For India, the calculus is about leverage. By allowing limited normalization with China, New Delhi gains bargaining chips in its dealings with Washington, Brussels, and Moscow. If India shows it can talk to Beijing, it sends a message to the U.S. Don't take our alignment for granted. If India shows openness to China, it tells Russia, we still balance multiple powers. This move also comes at a time when the global chessboard is in flux. The US is tightening controls on semiconductors and tech. Russia is deepening ties with China. Europe is struggling with its own crises. And in the middle of this, India has emerged as the swing power, courted by everyone, balancing between blocs. By resuming flights with China, India signals that it is not locked into a rigid anti-China camp. It keeps its options open. And that's classic Indian foreign policy strategic autonomy, keeping cards close to the chest. But there's another layer to this story. The symbolism of planes flying again has a psychological impact on both populations. For 5 years, Indian citizens looked at China with suspicion, often hostility. For 5 years, Chinese media portrayed India as a pawn of the West. Now, when flights resume, ordinary people will cross borders again. Business delegations will meet. Students will return. These human links can soften perceptions, even if only marginally. And that matters, because geopolitics is not just about leaders and armies. It's about people. Still, risks remain. Critics in India warn that China is using this to lull India into complacency, to normalize relations while keeping pressure on the border. They argue that Beijing wants to divide India's attention, to create the illusion of normalcy while strategically gaining ground. They ask, should India trust China again, even in something as basic as flights? Security agencies worry about surveillance risks, about flows of information and influence. And on the other side, Chinese analysts worry that India could still tilt hard toward the US, making flights just a cosmetic gesture. So where does this leave us? The truth is, this step is both symbolic and limited. It's a small move in the larger chess game, but small moves can signal larger strategies. Think of it this way. When two nations that haven't spoken for years suddenly begin talking, you don't expect peace the next day. But you recognize that the silence has been broken. That's what's happening here. After 5 years of frozen skies, the engines are revving again. The silence has ended. What happens next will depend on how both sides manage expectations. Will this lead to broader engagement, like ministerial visits, trade talks, or even Modi and Xi sharing a stage again? Or will it remain a narrow, transactional step? The answer isn't clear. But what is clear is that the world is watching. Washington is watching closely. The US will be uneasy if India and China appear to soften. Because for Washington, keeping India on its side in the Indo-Pacific competition is critical. If India shows it can engage China, it reduces US leverage. Similarly, Moscow is watching. Russia has deep ties with both India and China, and it benefits when its two partners talk rather than clash. Europe is watching too, wondering if this signals a new phase of Asian diplomacy. In closing, we must understand that flights are never just flights in geopolitics. They are metaphors for connection, for trust, for the willingness to engage. The Delhi-Beijing air corridor was silent because politics demanded it. Now it will roar again because strategy allows it. Whether this is the dawn of a new era or just a tactical adjustment remains to be seen. But one thing is certain. When planes take off later this October, it won't just be passengers crossing borders. It will be signals, strategies, and a subtle shift in the India-China story. And that makes this seemingly technical update one of the most geopolitically significant moves of the year.